Today I'm going to show you how to change the rear brakes on a 2009 Honda CRV. And this is similar for a lot of Hondas. It took me 3 hours to do this job on my own. And it was my first time, and I dropped about 100 F-bombs doing this job. And everyone said, why don't you just make a video, Doug, because you do these all the time. So I'm going to show you what I learned so that you don't fuck around for 3 hours changing your rear brakes. Now, let me just back up for a minute. We started with getting new tires put on. And the shop said, oh, you need all new rear brakes. Maybe the calipers are okay, but pads, rotors, the whole bit. $400 they wanted to charge me. I said, okay. I called the auto parts store. I got the pads for 30 bucks, and I got 2 rotors for 30 bucks each. So all said and done, it was around 100 bucks out the door with tax. And I thought I was getting a great deal until I got into the job and I realized and started panicking, I didn't know if I'd get this thing done. So I'm going to take you in and show you why you actually need one of these to get this job done. A chisel, which sounds insane, but that's Honda engineering for you. And then I'm going to also show you what was actually wrong with my car. Just one rotor was grinding. The pads were actually fine. The shop was going to basically rip me off and take 400 bucks of my money when all that really needed changed was this rusty rotor. I'll show you guys a close-up of that in a minute, but it was grinding. So the pads were fine. The grinding was coming from rust because we live in Cleveland, Ohio, and they salt the roads. So everything rusts up here. Alright, let's get started. And here's a close-up of the rotor. You can see it's rusted on the outside pretty good, but it was still gripping on the inside there. But this is shot. Now, where there's 2 screws, you're going to find that they're very difficult to get out because they're going to be rusted on. So, there's a couple of ways we can attack this. You can come in, put your screwdriver in there, assuming the screw's there. This has been replaced, of course, but come in here, use a little mini sledgehammer or a little hammer, and just bang it. And that might shake it up just enough that you'll be able to unscrew it. If that doesn't work, I'm going to take one of these types of hammers and stick it in there on top of the screw and hammer it in. Then come back with your screwdriver and try it again. But each time, try to come in and hit it with the hammer. And coming in at a little bit of an angle is good too. That might help. But you got to just keep trying and keep trying. And then another step you could try to take, and this is why it took me so long, is none of these worked. I used a chisel, and what you could do is take your chisel and try to come to the edge of the screw, and then hit it with your sledgehammer, and try to get the screw to basically turn by nicking the edge and grabbing it. And then if that doesn't work, which it didn't for me either, you could try to drill it out. So I grabbed a little drill bit. I think I had an 1/8 inch drill bit. That's what I ended up using, and I just drilled right into this, right into that, and then it pretty much came off. Actually, then the chisel did work because it kind of ground it up enough that I could pop it out. Now, you don't need to put those screws back in. So obviously I didn't. They're only there just for the factory, just to kind of set it up as they put this rotor on. It doesn't serve any function. It's a completely useless screw that's going to waste a lot of your fucking time. So I wanted to do this video to try to help you out, show you the 3 steps. Now, if this rotor is stuck on there pretty good because it's rusted on, like mine was, I ended up putting some screws into here. And when you screw it in, it'll help pull this off. So that's just a little tip for you as well. Alright, so I just wanted to show you that hard part first. Let's back up a minute and take off our caliper, because that's where you'll begin. You've got 4 bolts you need to take off. There's 2 right there. Those are 12mm. And then in the back, you have 2 17mm bolts that are really torqued down hard. I had a very hard time getting those off, and I don't have a breaker bar, so as a little tip for you, you can kind of tap your ratchet, not too hard, because you don't want to break it, but just that little bit of tapping action helped me break those bolts loose. And then you have these 2 12mm bolts that need to come out.
And the way you got to do this is you got to put a 12 millimeter socket on the back side, and then you got to use a 17 millimeter wrench on the front side to hold it so that it doesn't just keep spinning. And this one's not torqued down as hard. I did need to use some WD-40 though to help me break it loose, because it's, as you can see, it's all pretty badly rusted right now. Alright, so once you're done pulling out those 4 bolts, the caliper will pull straight back, and we're just going to set it down behind us here so that it does not rest on that brake line, because you don't want to break that connection. And look at that! Look how easy that came off. Oh, by the way, behind it though is the emergency brake, so it's a drum brake style. That's what's inside the rotor there. By the way, replace that little rubber grommet too. Make sure you do that so you don't get water in there. And then there's these little washers that you need to make sure you put those back on when you put it all back together for the 17 millimeter bolts. Now, I'm not going to show you how to replace the brake pads and how to get in there and do that, because honestly, if you've gotten this far, that will take you 5 minutes. That's one of the easier things. It's tedious, but it's not that difficult. So I hope this video helped you and gave you some tips on how to do this job and do it in a timely fashion. If that doesn't get a like, I don't know what the fuck will.